What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind. It is Friday, May 24th. I am not Stevie TPFL. I am TJ Zwarych, breaking down the 11-game MLB DFS slate with my guy, Will Priester. Chief, how you doing this evening?
I am good, man. Listen, it's been a very interesting week for me with MLB and DFS, the Pick'em streets, but man, I think we hopefully got back on track, and we kind of been getting back on track, TJ. Like I've seen everything start to turn a corner, and if things line up the way I think, then we're about to take off to the moon here real soon over the next few weeks. So glad to come on with you and do a show. And we haven't done as many shows, which we have been doing them on the weekend. So I think it'll be me, you, and Britt again this weekend, I think. But our little original weekend crew that we had kind of for the past couple months, it's a little bit different, our TWT, but that's okay. Like we're squeezing in some bro time on the morning grind. So happy to come on, chat with you, talk with you, and help these people make a little money on this slate.
Couldn't agree more, and we're going to be running it back lots over the next couple days because you're right. It's me, you, and Britt on Saturday, and then Stevie's still away on Monday, and so It's going to be for that morning grind. It's going to be you and me again, and then I have a feeling that once NFL season rolls around, we get to start messing around in the showdown streets again. That's when we're really going to be cooking. Yeah. That's when we're going to be cooking.
We're going to get real spicy for showdown. Don't you worry.
But we got live viewers joining us right now on YouTube. Derek Ringling in chat. What's up, Derek? We got 11 games, so I think it's time for us to just start diving in. First one on the slate, we got the Dodgers at the Reds. 10 total in this one. Dodgers usually the late night hammer, but they're in Cincinnati, and so they're the first game of the slate. We got James Paxton at Graham Ashcraft. Do you have any interest in James Paxton at 8,200?
No. And I think this is too much for James Paxton. He's not the same Paxton that we're used to. Now, here's the difference, TJ. Despite the fact that the strikeouts aren't there, he's still eating through innings. He's just not picking up enough strikeouts. And at 8,200, I don't want to get involved with him on this slate. He's also seeing him in back-to-back starts roughly. So this is I'm not playing any James Paxton.
It's been a really weird season for him. He was great the first two starts of the season, fell off a cliff, and now he's been pitching better again the last few games, but still no strikeouts, like you said. And so I'm with you. We can do better on an 11-game slate than James Paxton. We are definitely not playing Graham Ashcraft at $6,400, so we can save some time and just move on. What about the Dodgers going up against Ashcraft? Obviously, we like them. Where do you think they're going to be on this slate in terms of your favorite stacks?
An 11-game slate, TJ, I definitely think they'll get some ownership. This is a Coors slate. And Phillies traveling to Colorado, so Philly's probably going to garner some ownership. The top backs for the Dodgers are expensive, like Freddie Freeman and Ohtani. Ohtani's 6,600, Freeman's 56. You've got what is his name? Teoscar Hernandez at 5,100, who's a little bit more expensive than not more expensive this season, but more expensive than what we're used to paying for him on other teams. Will Smith is 5,200. So, there's a lot of guys. Now, Mookie Betts is down to 5,900. But their bigger bats are more expensive. And so I just think this slate with Coors, first of all, are the Dodgers probably the top stack on the slate or one of them? Absolutely. I don't think they're going to be over-owned on an 11-game slate, though. So, and I'll probably spend more time on this than, some of these other stats. But I did want to highlight the Dodgers because something you brought up is important. They're usually playing at 10 o'clock. So maybe they get a tick more ownership because there's a shiny new toy playing at 7 Eastern, 7:10 Eastern. but I still think with such a big slate, they're not over-owned.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think we should have to, outside maybe Coors, worry about ownership too much on an 11-game slate. And the beauty about the Dodgers on this slate is they're affordable. Mookie Betts at 5,900. It's the cheapest he's been all season. Freddie Freeman at 5,600. Hernandez and Smith barely over 5K. Pajes has gone down to below $3,900, and he's been still playing great. And then you have your Hernandez's and your Luxes nice and cheap. It's pretty easy to stack these guys up, and so I like them a lot today as well. Cincinnati going against Paxton. I would love to take them against the Paxton of a couple weeks ago that was just getting lit up all the time. He has been a lot better. I've been stacking against him, and it just hasn't worked. However, Cincinnati is pretty much on my stack every slate list just because they have power. They have a lot of speed. I'm probably going to be stacking them up in this spot as well.
Yeah, same here. Cincinnati's kind of a stacker fade for me. I am going to do it playing in Cincinnati, Great American Small Park. We do know that typically, we see runs scored here, especially when it gets more warm, and it is starting to warm up. And so I'm not necessarily just going to pick and choose these guys, TJ. Whoever's available, I'll just kind of stack them around, however I want to and kind of let it roll from there. Now, obviously, everybody's going to want to play Ellie. Like, we know that. They do have India back now, who's a cheaper back. Candelar's been cheap all season. But, like, none of them are, like, crazy expensive anymore. Steer is 5K, but, I mean, we can still fit him in. So, I think just crafting stats that work for the salary, I'm fine with doing that with Cincy.
Milwaukee at Boston, 9 total in this one, 9.5 total in this one. We have Bryce Wilson going at Cutter Crawford. Do you have any interest in Bryce Wilson, 6,600 going up against Boston?
That's going to be a no.
Maybe if this was in a really good pitcher's park or something on a small slate, you take a shot, but not on this slate. What about Cutter Crawford going up against Milwaukee? Crawford, a pitcher that has been fairly consistent all season. 8,900 I think is affordable. Milwaukee has a lot of power, but they also have some strikeouts.
Yeah, I don't. So here's the thing for me with Crawford. I've been playing Cutter Crawford a lot this season. In fact, I've been playing a fair amount of the younger Boston pitchers. Crawford, Tanner Houck. They just got Brian, Bayo back. I've played them. I don't think I'm going to do it against Milwaukee though today. I think so and it's really more about the slate. So like when I look at the slate, I think I just have other guys that I would rather play. That one in particular that's a little bit cheaper. Like I'd much rather play him. And then there's another guy that's like above him that I'd just rather pay up and play him. So he's just kind of an odd man out for me today against an offense that I think has gotten better with Yelich. I mean, they've been good so far this season anyway. But like with Yelich back, I just think that adds another level to this offense. And so I'm going to be spending up at pitching today or spending all the way down. Like that's kind of where I'm at, TJ. I'm going to have a high guy and probably a low guy in my main lineup.
I do think playing 150 lineups, I'm going to have some interest in Cutter Crawford. He's probably going to be still in there in the pool for me. What about Milwaukee going up against him? It's a park upgrade, and Milwaukee's a good offense, but Crawford's not really a pitcher I like stacking against.
Yeah, I'm not. That's the thing. I don't really want to play the Milwaukee bats per se. Like I don't mind a one-off Yelich. I don't mind a one-off Jake Bauers. Like if you want to hunt for some power. But generally speaking, I'm not going to stack. I think these guys kind of cross each other out. And so for that reason, like I said, there's a guy that while I think he's descending in his talent, I do think the matchup today, who's slightly below Crawford, I think that's going to yield us to play him a little bit more. So once again, like I've got a guy in the range that I like, Crawford. I've got guys above Crawford, and then I've got a guy that's much cheaper than Crawford that I want to play. And on this 11-game slate, I can just tell you right now, I'm going to play all three of the guys above 10K, TJ. So I'm going to need that cheapie. And then I think Crawford's fine. I just don't like him better than some of these other guys. That's really what it boils down to.
Is your cheapie in the low 7K range?
Yes, he is. You know me so well.
I think I got a handle on who that one might be, and I don't disagree with you. What about Boston going up against Bryce Wilson? Wilson's not strong whatsoever. Rafael Devers has been one of the hottest hitters in baseball.
Yeah.
O'Neill has been one of the strongest hitters in baseball all season, and Duran's actually been hitting the ball really. This whole offense has been playing pretty well lately. What do you think about the Boston Red Sox?
Yeah, I like Boston today against Bryce Wilson. I don't care how he's been pitching or what we think he is or is not. We've seen enough Bryce Wilson to know that eventually, TJ, the blow-up game is coming. And so I want to be ahead of it, not behind it. So Boston is a complete stack for me. And speaking of Boston, as an aside, a brief aside, wait until they get Yoshida back. Like, this lineup is actually going to be pretty good. Yoshida, one of their lower strikeout bats too, TJ. So once again, Boston's in a really unique space. I give them another year, and they might be ready to make some real noise. But I do plan on stacking Boston. Connor Wong's been good. I think we've all been banging the drum for Connor Wong and the power that he's shown this season. And you mentioned Devers. I mean, no secret, man. He's been really good. Did he have a streak of like 6 straight games with a home run or something like that? I mean, just fantastic. And even after that, he's still been productive outside of that. But yeah, I like him a ton. If I'm stacking Boston, no way I'm fading Devers.
Wilyer Abreu, another guy I really like as well. He's been hitting the ball very well. And other than that, nothing really else to add for me. I agree with everything you said. Texas Rangers at Minnesota Twins, 8.5 total in this one. We have Jose Urena going up against Bailey Ober. Do you have any interest in Jose Urena? Not a strong pitcher. Pretty good strikeout matchup against Minnesota.
I can't do it, man. I don't play Jose Urena ever. I'm not starting today.
No, I agree with you 100%. We are not getting to Jose Urena. What about Bailey Ober on the other side? Tough matchup against Texas, but this is a guy that has shown some very low floors, but also some very high ceilings this year.
Yeah, man. I like Ober. I don't love Ober. I don't think I'm going to play him today, TJ, and let me tell you why. And I know did you follow the previous slate, the Thursday slate afternoon by chance?
Not the final 2 games, but I played the main slate.
The main early, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Texas rolled out their B team lineup. He's getting the A team today. I like Ober. I think there's a chance he could go for 20. I think there's a chance he could go for 10. He probably ends up somewhere in the middle. And once again, even though this slate is large, because I want so much exposure to the upper guys, he's just going to end up right outside of right outside my line, my cutoff line. If you want to play Ober, not you specifically, but I'm saying the people, if they want to play Ober, like, fine. He's 8,300. Take your shot. He could get you 25 fantasy points. He's just going to end up slightly outside of the pool for me today.
Yeah, he's kind of in that Cutter Crawford spot for me where he's probably he might make my pool. He might not. I'm not sure yet. Depends how tightly knit I make it. But I don't mind Bailey Ober. I think he's in the MME consideration. Not so much a single entry type consideration on this slate. What about the Texas Bats going up against them?
I don't necessarily want to play the Bats per se. I don't mind Seager. He's 5,300. Price is coming down. We haven't really seen the Seager explosion earlier in the season, but look over the past couple of games here. He's starting to come on. Yeah, at 5,300, I think this is a great, even if he's just a one-off, I think this is a great one-off play. I'm assuming Jonah Heim isn't back. I'm assuming he'll be back. I don't hate him. I don't hate Nate Lowe. Like, there's some guys. And so I do think this is probably a mini stacks only. I don't want to go 5 deep here because I don't think he gets all the way beat up. I think if anything, he gives up, a couple big hits.
Couldn't agree more. I love Corey Seager today. He's underpriced now that he seems to be recovered from that injury. Homers in 3 straight games. Not interested in the full stack though. How about Minnesota? I don't mind them, but I wish they were a little bit cheaper. They're not expensive by any means, but a lot of the guys like the Julians, the Keplers, the Castros, I like them a lot more when they were mid to high 3K as opposed to mid to high 4Ks. How do you feel about Minnesota tonight?
Yeah, I feel the same way. And here's the thing. I know Minnesota has been striking out a little bit more recently. Like they but Uranium, man, he's not a high strikeout guy. I actually really like Minnesota as a full stack today, sneakily. And while they're priced up some, like Kepler's 48 and Castro's 44, Larnach's 43, Krylov, 35, Julian 45, Santana 37, Jeffers 5,200. Jeffers has earned that price tag, by the way. He's probably been one of their best hitters this season in terms of power.
He's been one of the best hitters in baseball this season, period.
That's what I'm saying. Like Jeffers. So here's the thing, TJ. I've been banging the drum for Jeffers for what feels like weeks. I feel like every time somebody asks me about a home run call, I say, well, Jeffers, and he hits one. Will he hit one today? You shall see. But I do really like him, and I like this stack a ton. I think this is a really good mid-range stack, TJ. Right? So they're not as expensive as the Dodgers or the Phillies, but they're not as cheap as, say, like some of the Boston – not Boston – some of the Boston pieces, or like sometimes the Mets get really cheap. The White Sox are really cheap. But yeah, all in all, TJ, I can't express enough how much I like this Minnesota offense today.
Giants at Mets, 7.5 total. Kyle Harrison going up against Christian Scott. Do you have any interest in Kyle Harrison going up against the Mets?
Oh man, like.
Throw another one in the Cutter Crawford and Bailey Ober spot.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. And then even Kyle Harrison, like the Mets are a fairly low strikeout team. Now, I know he has. There's a few more strikeouts with some of the lefties, but like this still isn't a high strikeout offense, and we're not seeing massive strikeouts from Harrison overall. Like he's been more in the 4 to 5 range with some sprinkles of 7s. But typically he's 4 and 5. At 8,500, you mentioned it. I'm not gonna keep beating a dead horse. He's Cutter Crawford today, and I can't do it. I think there's a cheaper guy that's way better. I think there's a guy that's a little bit more expensive than him because of the matchup that's a little better, even though he's aging. Everybody probably knows what I'm talking about by now, but I can't do it.
He's another guy that's potentially in the pool for me. We'll check the projections in the morning. We'll check the ownership. Crawford, Harrison, and Ober, I kind of feel the same way about all three of them. I wouldn't change a lineup if I have $8,500 remaining. I like my stack, and Crawford and Harrison just fit.
Yeah, understood.
And at the same time, if those guys are going to be on like an 11-game slate, 3% owned, I'll get myself 6-7%, double the field just in case one of them hits a ceiling game. Not going to affect very many of my lineups if they don't. Yeah. Christian Scott on the other side, I feel like is the same boat as those plays, but he's cheaper. Maybe not a guy that's going to go 100+ pitches, but Christian Scott going up against the Giants, I think, is very viable for tournaments today.
Yeah, for sure.
Same tier for me as those guys that we've talked about, but just above them. Like it's either one tier above or the top of that tier.
Yeah, absolutely. And he got beat up a little bit in that Miami game, but before that, he had faced Atlanta and Tampa Bay. With young pitchers, TJ, you have to be patient with them. Give them time. They're going to have some of these starts. I mean, Paul Skeens, as electric as he's been this season, did not have a massive strikeout day against the San Francisco Giants today. Sometimes that's going to happen. I think for Christian Scott at 7,900, TJ, I don't mind getting some exposure to him. Once again, a guy cheaper than him, I'd much rather play. But if I'm trying to spread the ownership out just a touch, I think I take Scott for the discount.
I want to not have any interest in the bats against him. Like, it's not a great park. Christian Scott's a good pitcher, but, and at first look, I had no interest. But on a slate that we have Imanaga pitching, we have Burns against the White Sox, we have Gallen against the Marlins.
Now you see what I'm saying. I'm gonna play these 10K guys.
We have guys that we want to spend up for. I think if you're building a lot of lineups, you have to have interest in San Fran so that you can full stack a team with those expensive pitchers, because the most expensive player on their team is Matt Chapman at $4,200. They've been batting Luis Matos at leadoff, and he is $3,400. You know, like, this is a full stack or mini stack that is really cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that, and I'm with you. I feel like I'll mini stack them before I full stack them, but that's just me. We've got another cheap offense that I do think. Hear me out here. That I think is viable, TJ. Viable. I'm not saying I'm going to load up, but what I am saying is, if you want to play two of the big guns, I think there's one more offense that's viable for stacking.
Baltimore Orioles at the Chicago White Sox. We got where's the total? 8.5 total in this one. Corbin Burns going up against Chris Flexen.
This is going to be
you talked about liking the 10K pitchers. How do you feel about Corbin Burns going up against the White Sox?
Yeah, I'm playing Burns. I think there'll be enough righties. So here's the thing. Burns hasn't been elite outside of this matchup against Seattle. And early against the Angels, and he had one against Boston. And guess what? You should be elite in those spots, right? Like I don't mind that. This is a spot where the White Sox, in my opinion, have been great. Now, Grayson Rodriguez, he had 5 walks today, had some control issues, gave up a few hits, but PJ, he still had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. And had he not run his pitch count up, he would have went 6 innings, 8 strikeouts. I think Burns has, at this stage in the game, I think he's a little bit better than Grayson Rodriguez. Grayson Rodriguez will be good, or may even be elite in a year or two. I still think Corbin Burns is much better than him today. And at 10-6 against the White Sox, who, while there are some strikeouts and there's some guys are low strikeouts, TJ, there's no power in this lineup. I mean, they got 1 or 2 guys that you're afraid of, and everybody else, if he keeps the ball on the ground, Babbitt swings in his favor, we could be looking at another 25, 30 fantasy point performance. I really like Corbin Burns. I think he's going to be fine today.
Yeah, I like him too. I think he does rank 3rd for me among the expensive pitchers, but that's not a slight against him. That's not a slight. I think he's still a great play. And ownership will be heavily impacted on that. Like, if one of these 3 is a lot less owned than the other, that's the one I'm going to be playing a lot of. Not playing Chris Flexen, we can skip past that. Bats against him. The Orioles are really expensive, but this is a big park upgrade going from Baltimore to Chicago. And I think this team is kind of in the Dodgers tier of they're expensive and tough to get to, but if you can, they're a great stack and they're a great mini stack.
Yeah, for sure. I might full stack Baltimore, and that's where some of these cheap ones come in, because we're getting flexing, man. Like, that's really what this is. Like, I'm not afraid of Chris Flexen. There's still enough cheap backs like Santander, like O'Hearn, like Mullins. And I know we got expensive ones like Henderson and Adley Rutschman, but we still got cheap backs that we can play to pair with them. So I really like Baltimore. I'm probably going full stack on Baltimore. And obviously, I'm not playing Flexen, and I'm not going to play any White Sox bats either.
Yeah, no White Sox bats on this slate. Definitely, we can move on to the next game. I will kind of just hammer home Baltimore will be one of my favorite stacks on the slate, because I think they're going to be very low owned. And I think they have as much upside as any team on the slate in this spot.
Agreed.
Chicago Cubs going up. Speaking of talented pitchers, we got the Chicago Cubs playing against the St. Louis Cardinals, 7.5 total in this one. Imanaga going up against Miles Michaelis. Just before, so we can spend more time on Imanaga, are you going to consider Michaelis on a big slate like this against the Cubs?
Heavens no.
Heavens no, exactly. Good. Imanaga, top raw points guy on the slate, I think by a fairly wide margin. I could see him. I would view him as maybe a 3 or 4 point higher guy than a Gallen or a Burns. He's just been absolutely lights out. Cheese always says in his articles, like, he's probably not going to be the best pitcher of all time, but so far he's shown us no reason to believe that he hasn't been. He's only gone over 100 pitches once, but he has only been under 20 DK points in 2 games this season, and he's been over 30 in 3 or 4 of them. Like, this is a guy that's just been absolutely lights out. St. Louis has been a lot better than they were earlier in the season, but it's still not a lineup we're worried about.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, look, man, Imanaga's been good, TJ. And the thing is, the reason he's been so good outside of the Braves, he's not walking many bats. I mean, he walked 2 against Seattle, 3 against the Braves, but he's not walking more than 1 bat a game, which means he's keeping guys off the base paths. He's not really getting lit up too much. Like, sometimes he gives up hits, but generally speaking, he's somewhere between 3 and 5 hits. So he's not getting smashed. He's only given up a handful of home runs, and then most starts, TJ, he's been 6 to 8 strikeouts in most starts, and honestly, if he's gone over 6, he's been in the 7 to 8 range, TJ, and he hasn't been giving up a lot of runs. So I really like Shota here. I'm not afraid of the St. Louis Cardinals offense right now. Haven't been afraid all season. Shout out to our good friend of the show, Derek Ringering, who continued all early this season to say, look, man, just keep attacking the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm going to do that with Imanaga, and hopefully at the end of the night, TJ, the Brinks truck is backing up to my front door.
Yeah, I'll be playing him in every lineup I can afford him in. I won't be having any lineups with that have which one? Corbin Burns with $400 left on the table. If I have those $400 left on the table, I'm playing Imanaga. And so he's definitely my top pitcher on the slate. We are not playing St. Louis against him. Cubs going up against Michaelis, though, I think are in a really nice spot. An affordable stack with a lot of upside.
Yeah, I like the Cubs. Like, I think this is a good spot for them. Bellinger, I mean, they don't really have any bats over 5K, TJ. Not one. Bellinger's at 48. But, like, generally speaking, no bats over 5K against a pitcher that could get knocked around a bit. Like, he's probably going to give up 6 or 7 hits. It's just whether or not the runs come behind the hits, TJ. And if the runs start coming, I mean, he may even give up 7 to 10 hits in the spot. And you may say, well, Chief, really? I mean, you think he's going to give up that many hits? Folks, Miles Michaelis, last game he had 2 hits. Game before that, 6 hits. Game before that, 9 hits. Game before that, 6 hits, 7 hits, 9 hits, 4, 6, 7, 7. What does that tell you, folks? He's giving up hits. Will the runs come? I hope they do. I like the Cubs here. I think the Cubs are full stack offense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love Bellinger. I love Morel. This entire lineup up and down, they're pretty much all too cheap. And so I really like the Cubs in this spot as well. It's time for Coors. We have the Philadelphia Phillies going into Coors Field to face the Colorado Rockies. Christopher Sanchez going up against Ty Blach. Christopher Sanchez is the cheap pitcher you've been teasing all show.
Oh, yeah, 7,200 going into Coors. I get it. Like, you know, but here's the thing, TJ. I play pitchers in Coors, the good pitchers, probably every slate because they always get the bump down, right? They get this massive price decrease, like their skills are about to fall off the face of the earth. Well, if the Colorado Rockies offense was good, I feel much differently about this. Despite their little small winning streak that they rattled off a few days ago, I am not afraid of this team. Give me Chris Sanchez at 7,200 a guy that has some strikeout ability. TJ, if he can keep the ball on the ground and in the park and not get blown up and give up too many hits and look, he's another guy that's going to give up hits, but he's also got strikeout upside to back it up. I think we see a nice performance from Sanchez at 7,200. TJ, if you told me today I'm going to get 18 points from Sanchez at 7,200, I take it right now. And so that's where I am. I think he can get you 15 to 20 with upside for 20 to 25. And I think the strikeout upside is there. So I really like him at 7,200, which is why I don't feel like I have to play Cutter Crawford and some of these other guys. I can play in the 7K range. I do have one 8K guy that I like. I can play in the 7K range, and I feel like get similar production.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I like Christopher Sanchez quite a bit today as well. Feel very similar to him as I do about why can't I remember the other guy's name? Christian Scott, Christopher Sanchez. Wow, those are some names that are somewhat similar that are easy to confuse. We're not playing Ty Black in this spot. We don't have to worry about that. Are you going to be playing any Phillies bats against Colorado and Black? Because I know you typically like to fade Coors.
Oh yeah, I'm fading Coors for sure today. Like, there's no doubt about it, TJ. There's enough games for me to fade, right? So over the years, what I will say is this: 3 and 4 game slates, good offense in Coors against a bad pitcher, in anywhere from game 2 to 3 in the series, I probably have to play them some. The slate's too small, right? On an 11-game slate, TJ, I can assure you I will not have one Philly bat in my build. They will all get the X button. If Philly goes off for 20 runs, I say, hey, they got me, and I call it a day. But I think there's enough offense between the Dodgers, between the Cubs, between Boston, between Minnesota. You get what I'm like, between Baltimore. Like, think about, these are all offenses we've named, and we've just got to the Coors game. That's about 4 or 5 offenses already. So I'm perfectly fine leaving the Phillies on the shelf. Let me also parlay that into this statement, TJ. I'm not telling you, and you as in the listeners, to fade Coors. But you guys know I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, and I'm absolutely hitting the X button on this whole offense because there are other offenses I can play on this particular slate.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, hey, if ownership comes in and they're not all that crazy owned, I'll still be playing them, but I probably will be looking to get underweight on this team today. What about Colorado against Sanchez? If you were to be, say, running 150 lineups, you're loading up on Sanchez, would you have some Colorado head stacked against him? They are always much lower owned than whoever they're facing, and they've actually been playing some good baseball lately.
They've been playing better. I get it. But I'm not playing Colorado either. I will say this. I would play Colorado today before I played Philly. And I love Sanchez today.
I think that makes sense. I'll probably be getting some exposure to Colorado stacks in my 150 Bills. Brenton Doyle is a guy that I like targeting, and he's been going higher and higher in the lineup recently. Ezekiel Tovar in the leadoff spot. I'll be getting to some of those guys there as well. Working our way through this one at a pretty nice pace. We got 4 games left in this one. If you're watching us on YouTube, smash the like button. Thank you for those tuning in live, and thank you for those who are tuning in the next morning. With your coffee, before work, or during work, maybe even. Smash that like button for us. And leave Stevie a nice 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if that's where you're listening as well. We got Cleveland at the LA Angels coming up in the next one. 8.5 total in this one. Logan Allen facing Patrick Sandoval. I think both of these pitchers in MME settings are somewhat in play here. They got feelings. They got cheap price tags. Starting out with Logan Allen. You got any interest here?
So there was an offense that I mentioned that I said I thought was on the list, and it's actually in this game. But I'm not playing Logan Allen. I think Logan Allen could be fine today. Logan Allen's just a little bit too sporadic for me. Logan Allen gets to sit on the shelf. Once again, there's an offense in this game that I think is viable.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be passing on him too. The potential ceiling games are enticing. Strikeouts are somewhat there for that price, but I just don't think I can go to Logan Allen today. Too many guys in that price range I like better than him. What about Patrick Sandoval on the other side of things? Another guy who's been very inconsistent all year, who has shown some struggles in some games and some big ceilings in others.
I'm not playing Sandoval here. Like, Cleveland's a fairly low strikeout offense in general. And Sandoval does have a tendency, TJ, to get his pitch count run up early in certain situations like this one. So yeah, like, look, in the past 3 games, he's completed 7 and 6 innings, right? But like, look at some of these games for it: 5, 5.2, 4, 5, 5, 5.2. Like, and I know that was earlier in the season. Don't get me wrong, TJ. Like, I get that, but he was still hitting 90 to 100 pitches in some of those starts. And low strikeout offenses could give him a problem. Even look at this Kansas City game. He gave up 11 hits. I'm not playing Pablo Sandoval today. Not doing it.
We got the Celtics taking a 2-0 lead over the Indiana Pacers, and with 10 minutes to go, my Oilers are leading the Dallas Stars 2-1. Exciting time in playoff sports right now. Angels going up against Logan Allen. Is that first? Cleveland going up against Patrick Sandoval. What do you think of that?
While I'm not playing Sandoval, I'm not really going to be playing much Cleveland either, TJ. This offense is pesky, but they're not a high octane offense. And so, like, I understand that, you know, they've got Jose Ramirez at 6K, and like, I get it. Like, there's some guys here, but generally speaking, I'm not playing the Cleveland offense, man.
I like a mini stack of Freeman, who's probably going to be batting leadoff and nice and cheap, with Ramirez and David Fry, who has just been absolutely tearing the cover off of the ball recently, just putting up great game after great game after great game. So I like a mini stack. Probably not as likely to full stack here. The Angels versus Allen. Is this your cheap stack that you're going to be looking to go to?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think the Angels, and you're not going to hear me say this too often, I think the Angels are viable here. Now, once again, I talked about them being cheap. Like, you've got Ohapi here at 3,900 at catcher. You know, you've got Shanuel. You've got Rengifo under 5K. You know, you've got in the outfield here. Now, I know Ward is 5K, but Pilar, is he the new Mike Trout? Has anyone seen what Kevin Pilar has been doing here recently? I think this team is cheap enough. And if you want to load up on double barrel pitching and have you a nice full stack cheap offense sprinkled in, I think the Angels are viable here. Like, we've seen Logan Allen have his struggles. I think the Angels are viable. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not saying they're scoring 12 runs. I think they can score 5 to 6 here with a couple home runs sprinkled in, TJ. I think they're too cheap for this slate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Joe Adele should be 4,500 at this point, and his price just isn't going up. Shanuel hits lefties well. Calhoun will probably still be in a good lineup spot. Pilar and Ohapi playing great baseball, and they're way too cheap. Yeah. So
I don't stop them all the way up.
If you can afford Ward and Rengifo, absolutely include them in your stacks. But it's the Ohapi, the Pilar, the Adele. Those are definitely my 3 favorites that I'd want to make sure I have in my lineup. Miami at Arizona. We have Braxton Garrett going up against Zach Gallen, 8 total in this game. We're not playing Braxton Garrett. Do you have any interest? I know you have interest. How would you compare Zach Gallen to Corbin Burns and Shota Imanaga?
I'm going to give Zach Gallen the nod. He's at home. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. A little bit cheaper, and he's at home. I'm gonna rank. So my rankings would be Imanaga, Gallen, Burns. But keep in mind, folks, that's not me saying, hey, play Imanaga at 50%, Gallen at 25% and Burns at 15%. No, I think you need to have massive exposure to all these guys. if I had 50% Imanaga, I'd probably be trying to have somewhere between 30 and 40 on Gallen and Burns. But so I'm just trying to give you an idea of where I am. But I definitely have Gallen ranked ahead of Burns today at home. I mean, this guy, he's been good for a couple seasons now, and we're starting to see him get better, TJ, over the rest of the season. He had some sprinkles in the middle there where he was getting hit around a little bit, but I don't think the Marlins have enough power to really knock him around. And as a result, TJ, I expect him to get through 6 innings pretty clean with upside for 7 to 8 here. So I like Gallen.
Yeah, I like Gallen a lot too. I have him above Burns and below Imanaga. It's kind of how I have it. But that $700 savings, pretty important. We're not going to be playing Miami going up against Zach Gallen, but
no,
Arizona up against Braxton Garrett. They fall into that Dodgers and Baltimore team kind of tier for me of stacks.
Yeah,
but they're a lot cheaper. They're a lot cheaper. I think Arizona might be my first choice for a single entry stack on this slate.
Interesting. I like it. I'm perfectly fine with that, TJ. Let me say Derek in chat said Sanchez, Gallen, Chicago 5-man, and then an Angels 3-man fits perfectly. Derek, you just gave out the winning slip, buddy. I'm just kidding. But I would go ahead and put that in. You never know, right? Sometimes your first mind is the right mind. I think we've seen that a lot in DFS. Don't tinker it, Derek. Just if you start itching for a tinker, throw another one in there. Back to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I do like the Diamondbacks today. I think Braxton Garrett is a middle of the road or an average pitcher, TJ. And I think, him just kind of coming back, as you've seen, like he's been getting knocked around. And not only has he been getting knocked around, TJ, because the strikeouts have been there, but he's getting knocked around and giving up the runs, right? Like he's doing both. And so I think it's still early in the season. I think right now he's still attackable. And I'm with you. I like this Arizona offense. Obviously, he's a lefty. There are plenty of lefty mashers in this offense. Eugenio Suarez at 3,600, TJ. Like, historically, he's hit lefties okay. He's going to strike out, but he's been able to hit for power. Christian Walker. Like, they've got guys. And so I like this team. I'm with you, TJ. I agree with you. They're much cheaper. And borderline, TJ, you could almost go double barrel with this team because they're probably going to play Blaze Alexander today. They're probably going to play Randall Grichuk today. So, like, you're going to get a cheap Arizona offense at home, and this is another cheap offense to add into if you want to play double barrel. Love to call them the Diamondbacks, TJ.
That's exactly it. It's really the cheapness that they're not my highest overall raw points upside team on the slate, but for point per dollar, I really think they are probably going to be my favorite stack, either in MME or in a single entry scenario. Houston at Oakland, next game up on the slate. We got Justin Verlander going up against Ross Stripling, 8.5 total in this one. Sounds to me like you have some interest in Justin Verlander at $8,600.
Yes. Verlander is my 8K guy today. And let me just say, TJ, I am not a Verlander fan this season, but similar to what we saw in the Detroit game, right? Where he's going to be facing a high strikeout offense. And once again, he is not Justin Verlander from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, five years ago. But in a spot that he can attack a bad offense, I think he's viable. 8,600. I think he can get us 20 to 25 fantasy points today, TJ. He's pitching in Oakland, which will help him even more. Oakland's a terrible ballpark for offense. I think this ballpark helps him. And so I really like him today against a high strikeout Oakland team that has absolutely been struggling.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I probably am not going to do it, though. He falls in the Cutter Crawford level tier for me with those other guys that we talked about before. Bailey Ober, Kyle Harrison. I think I would put Christian Scott and Christopher Sanchez as priorities above Verlander, and then I think I like Cutter Crawford a little bit better as well. I just don't trust the old man, even though it is a really good matchup, a big park upgrade. We're not playing Ross Stripling, even if though he's 5,600, he's cheap. Maybe I take a shot. No, you're not taking a shot. This guy's been having his worst season of the season.
Hold on a second. LSU, don't do this, man. Like, we've been rolling. LSU comes in just to try to wipe our face in the fact that he doesn't like JV against Oakland. I know JV's old. I get it. But it's Oakland. Like, listen, he's gonna have a few games. I'm not gonna play him every start. Just roll with this here, bro. Just roll with this. I know Verlander's not great, but Oakland's terrible. And the ballpark's good for him. Trust me on this. Sorry. Back to our regularly scheduled programs.
I don't think I'm personally going to get there, but I understand your reasoning, and I don't hate it whatsoever. I think there's just other guys I am going to prioritize instead. Oakland, 11-game slates going up against them. We just don't need to do that. Houston going up against Stripling, though. Houston hasn't been great this year, but Stripling's been horrific. Houston's starting to pick things up a little. Kyle Tucker has been arguably the best bat in baseball this year. I love me some Tucker. I like the stack, don't love the stack.
I like Houston a lot today. I mean, Stripling's been terrible, so I don't mind stacking Houston. Let me have a small exchange with my guy, LSU. So LSU, it's really easy to pick out the one start or two starts where these guys don't do well against bad teams, but then go back and look at the other 7 starts where they've done well. Like we can't keep doing this as an industry. Like, we get caught up in the one time, Glasnow fails against a team when he just mowed down 6 other teams that were better or worse. Like, it's a long, like, every pitcher we play isn't going to be great or elite, like, every single performance. But if, let's just say you look at the last 10 games, like, okay, if Glasnow's crushing 7, I feel like if he's rolling 70% of the times, so now LSU says it happens kind of more than it should. It happens when you notice it more than it should. It doesn't happen nearly as much as you think, right? We mentioned something and then it fails, and everybody remembers that, right, TJ? But nobody gives you a pat on the back for the against the grain calls. They call you out for the automatic ones. That's all I'm saying. And listen, my boy LSU is fine. Like this, I want LSU to know I'm not like bothered or anything like that. But I don't want people to like get in a tizzy because Glasnow fails once or twice. Over the long haul of the season, he's gonna be fantastic. And the other thing is Verlander's not elite. Like this is not me saying Verlander is elite. He's nowhere near a good pitcher like he was. But I think against Oakland at 8,600, I like him better than what's in that group. All right, sorry, TJ. That's just my little exchange. We had some time to spare today because we're at the last game. And thank you, LSU, for hearing me out. Thank you guys for letting me go on this rabbit hole and take this show off the rails temporarily. I'm handing it back to our illustrious host, TJ Zwarych. TJ,
one more thing about Verlander that I'll say before we switch it over to the next game. He hasn't been great from a game log perspective this year outside of one game, but he's had a really tough schedule. That one game, Detroit, was really the only time he faced a very beatable offense. Every one of the other ones was either a high power matchup or a low strikeout matchup. So even though I'm not on that side, you definitely have swayed me a little bit. Final game of the night, Carlos Rodon going up against Yu Darvish, 7.5 total in this one. Look, this game features some more of the somewhat expensive pitchers. Features a low total, but I think there's some sneaky offense in this game as well. Let's start with Carlos Rodon going up against the Padres.
Listen, man, Carlos Rodon is playing magician pitcher right now. Like, I'm telling you, I mean, you look at what's happened over the past few games, and you're like, what? Like, but seriously, man, I'm telling you guys, the numbers under the surface say Carlos Rodon is not as good as what he's done the past few starts. Now, listen, I'll give it to the guy, TJ. A couple years ago, Carlos Rodon was electric, right? was electric. I don't think he's electric anymore. I think his fastball, if I can remember, because I did a deep dive, I could be wrong, but I feel like he's hovering around 92, topping out at 94. I could be wrong, TJ. Maybe I'll just do a deep dive on him again, and maybe I'll put some of that stuff in the Grinders Live stuff, just because I don't want to steer people wrong. But once again, Carlos Rodon is not where he was. I don't think the strikeout upside is going to be there today. And if he gives up any runs, this could be a rough outing for him. I'm gonna parlay that into my boy Derek Ringering saying, God, the Padres, man, like one of the most gutless offenses out there. And boy, Kirk D's hit it out of the park with the gutless rankings, TJ. Because the Padres, I'm only doing this, guys, because we're at the last game and we've got a little bit of time. TJ, I'm ranting temporarily. It's about Rodon and the Padres. I think Rodon's frauding right now. And the Padres just keep doing this to us. They got a chance to face Frankie Montas on the previous slate, TJ. And Frankie Montas got knocked around, and then they just couldn't seal the deal. They topped out at 4 runs against Frankie Montas, who was just throwing meatballs at the plate. What in the world is going on with this big name offense, TJ? Can you help me here? I slightly like Yu Darvish for what it's worth at 8K. He's another guy, but once again, he's in that lower tier. I think I will play Yu Darvish even against a low strikeout team. We've got that out of the way. Rodon's frauding, and the Padres are gutless. Help me out here, buddy, please.
Yeah, one thing on Yu Darvish quickly I'll touch on is I originally would think I wouldn't have interest. I don't like facing pitchers against the Yankees, but Yu Darvish has not allowed a run in 4 straight games, which is the best stretch of his entire career. And so I do think the wheels probably fall off against the Yankees. That's a likely team for it to happen. But at only 8K, I will definitely play some Yu. I actually like the Padres against Rodon. I think they are sneaky. They are cheap. I'm going to play them. Machado has been awful against righties. He's been good against lefties. Fernando Tatis is only $5,300. Arias has been a big added boost to their offense. I think the reason they haven't been good on the season, I don't think they're that gutless. I just don't think they're that good. That's the thing. I think they're a heck of a lot better against lefties than they are righties outside of Jake Cronenworth. But he is pretty solid against lefties still. I just don't think this offense is that good. Like, their third best player is Cronenworth or Machado. That's not that special. That's not top tier. And so I don't actually think they're that gutless. I just don't think they're that good. But I do like them tonight. No one is going to play them against Rodon, but I like playing them against lefties. And it's like you said, I think the Rodon's been pitching behind smoke and mirrors right now. I don't see that continuing, and I could see the Padres getting to him a little bit. And as much as Darvish has been lights out, the Yankees, you play them on every slate. Judge and Soto have been amazing, but they're also super expensive. Outside of them, though, it's a nice cheap stack. You play your Austin Wells, your Gleyber Torres, and your Oswaldo Cabrera, and all of a sudden you can fit in your Juan Sotos and your Aaron Judges. Let's play the morning grind game. Got through this one at a pretty nice pace. We'll get out of here in about an hour, despite the slate being 11 whole games. Who is your pitcher under 8K to get 5 or more strikeouts?
Oh, man, no doubt about it. Give me my boy Sanchez at 7,200.
I'll go with the other guy with the same initials, and I'll go Christian Scott for that one. Who is your bust of the day? Pitcher over 8K to bust.
I've got a couple here, TJ, but I'm going to stick with Paxton, man. I think Cincinnati finally gets to Paxton. Like, he can't keep doing this. I think Cincinnati gets to him.
Speaking of he can't keep doing this, I'll go with the other guy, Carlos Rodon.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite hitter over 4K to hit a bomb tonight?
Believe it or not, it's Corey Seager, 5,300. I talked about. I think he's a little bit too cheap. I really like him today. Going with Seager.
I like that one. I will say the 2 MLB home run leaders, despite not being in great parks, they're going to be knocking them out of the park anyways. Kyle Tucker is the first one in not so great of a park, and then the other one, a big park upgrade. Gunnar Henderson is knocking one out as well. Favorite hitter under 4K to get 2 or more hits.
Got to be Kevin Pillar, man. One of the hottest hitters in baseball right now, out there in LA, facing off against none other than Logan Allen.
I'm going to go with Andy Pajes, Dodgers, $3,900. He should be priced up more expensive than that. He's been doing pretty well for them so far. I'm going to adjust the last one a little bit, not just a stack to score 6 or more runs. Give me your top overall stack and your top sneaky stack for large field tournaments.
Man, the top overall stack is tough today because there's so many. But honestly, man, my top overall stack, I think it's Minnesota today against Urania. I like this team against Urania, and then that's probably my top stack, but also sneaky. But I think if I'm going sneaky, I think I'm going Houston against Stripling at the end of the night because the Dodgers are playing so early. I think they get no ownership. I like Houston today.
On that same vein, I will go with Arizona, and my other team is the Baltimore Orioles today. Really love both of them. I haven't gotten a chance to check anything out yet, but have you any early props or pick'em stuff from the night before?
Ooh, give me 1 second. Usually I try to beat you to the punch with this. What I would say is if I'm assuming these high expensive pitchers like Burns, I'm assuming Burns is going to come in at 6.5 and not 5.5. He may even come in at 7.5. I think if Verlander comes in at 5.5 Ks, I want more than that. At 6.5, I leave it alone. If we can get him at 5.5, though, TJ, I like the over on that one. And then in terms of money lines, this one I think is it's an early. I'm gonna give you 2. Okay, I'm gonna give you 2. There's an early game here between the Royals and the Mariners. I mean the Royals and the Rays. I think I think being able to get them at -115 is a little bit too low. The Royals. So let's go Royals -115. And then we're getting the Cubs -135 against Mikolas with Imanago on the mound. -135 is the best I've seen. I think that's another good one. Those guys, both of those teams respectively, I think have a good shot at really running away with their respective games.
Not a ton available on Prize Picks the night before, but there is Rafael Devers 1.5 total bases and Corey Seager 7.5 total hitter fantasy score. I would definitely like the more than side on both of those quite a bit. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Those who joined us live on YouTube, Derek, Alan, Sean, Double J, LSU for life. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone, as well as those tuning in the next day. Stevie is gone traveling for some NASCAR stuff, but Will and I will be back for the Morning Grind Sunday Night Live for Monday's show as well. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We will see you again Sunday night or Monday morning. Peace.